The clan invasion was one of the most traumatic shocks the Inner Sphere had faced since the Second Succession War. While the Third and Fourth Wars certainly drained the Inner Sphere's resources, and most definitely killed many people, it didn't have the shock or intensity of these fabled older conflicts. While the scale of the invasion too was not so great that it encompassed the entirety of the Inner Sphere, it was the jolt of fear and realization that something akin to an alien invasion of technologically sophisticated barbarians could come out of the depths of the deep periphery to threaten life as people knew it across human space, that spurred the sphere into action. Infrastructure was rebuilt on a massive scale. Ancient rivalries were put aside for economic development and trade, and the grandest of armies since the early succession wars were forged to strike back against these invaders. In this process, a series of new, cutting-edge designs were put forward to the Inner Sphere militaries for this new conflict. These concepts leveraged the ancient, lost technologies of the Star League to their fullest in an attempt to match and overtake their clan counterparts. With anything, however, new wonder weapons, or relearning the art of stable offensive platforms can be a bit hit or miss. In this video, we are going to examine a Battlemech which embodies the spirit of innovation, though one which is entirely flawed in executing its original purpose. A product of the legendary and historically vital New Avalon Institute for Science. One would imagine it to be supreme at its intended role in operation. But even the greatest can have misses. So, without further delay, as if we could delay this particular machine even if we wanted to, let's examine this failed elemental hunter. Saurian Enterprises. Fireball. Elementals fundamentally changed warfare for the Great Houses, periphery, and mercenary units that opposed the clans. While infantry could always be powerful assets against battlemechs under the right conditions, Elementals added a new layer of lethality against tanks and battlemechs that the Inner Sphere had not observed before. These were infantry formations that were heavily armored, mobile, and all possessed tank-busting and mech-busting weaponry. They also had very proficient offensive tools for dispatching infantry in waves of violence as well. This created a real problem for the armed forces of the Federated Commonwealth and their mercenary surrogates. This, along with many other tactical and technological shortcomings, were being addressed inside of the technological hub that was the NAIS. Warfare was changing, especially in the aftermath of 3052, and the temporary cessation of hostilities with the clans. This gave the major powers standing in opposition to the outside invaders time to assess their enemies' capabilities in ways they simply couldn't under the demands and stresses of a full-scale war. Instead of quick fixes being adapted for battlemechs or other machines, and pushing these into service, serious considerations and new designs began being developed. To address the problems of the aforementioned armored infantry, New Avalon would begin the process of conceiving a new battlemech type after intense discussions, sometime in the latter portion of the invasion or just after it. Saurian Enterprises would partner with them, and came into the contract for this anti-battle armor battlemech. Conceived as a rapid response 20-ton machine, built to hunt down battle armor while supporting heavier on-field assets, like medium and heavy battlemechs, the mech they conceived was brilliant, elegant, and entirely out of date as of the time of its manufacturing and development. The ALM-7D Fireball would begin walking off the assembly line only 1 year after the Battle of Tukiad in 3053, and it was very much built to fight not elementals. Pitifully armed and moderately armored, this machine would struggle to deal with any elemental target, despite its increased speed, as it is functionally more lightly gunned than a single elemental itself. Its weaponry is more specialized, if anything, for attacking standard infantry targets, rather than elementals themselves. Reports during raids by the Crucius Lancers, Deneb Light Cavalry, and Seti Hussars describe the mech in horrifyingly brutal detail in its lack of ability to perform its intended role. The mech was given an honest treatment and was seen as an overt disaster in regards to this purpose. As you can imagine, this was a problem. The Fireball was, in essence, a poor anti-infantry mech, given the role of fighting elementals. This would not, at least seemingly at first, help Saurian Enterprises and the NAIS. I'm sure the marketing budget for the Fireball must have been written off before the end of the first raids. However, the Federated Suns units did find value in the mech's offerings. While it was miserable at its roles, in the same raiding campaigns, the Fireball was found to be a fantastic scout and recon asset. This was because of its gigantic onboard power plant, as it gave it the ability to run over 180 kilometers per hour. More or less, the Fireball was placed into a role which wouldn't get its pilots immediately killed, or putting their lives in jeopardy during the campaign. It just so happened to excel at this one aspect of the operation so much that it became the out for Saurian Enterprises and the NAIS to save their reputations, and the reputation of the mech itself. The Fireball would evolve from simply being a pathetic, poor attempt at dealing with the very real problem of clan elementals, over to being the ultimate recon asset, and one which would keep pace with dangerous clan omnimechs like the legendary Firemoth, otherwise known as the Dasher. Within 2 years, configurations would enter construction by Saurian on New Avalon of the Fireball, which appropriately adjusted its purpose in full, away from supposedly combating elementals, to its new ideal. Just because something starts as a bad idea in one space, doesn't mean it can't find its calling in another. The Fireball was built to run. It would famously do so alongside the armed forces of the Federated Commonwealth, and later the armed forces of the Federated Suns, all the way into the 32nd century and the Dark Age. The 20-ton Maverick that is the Fireball would emerge in 3053, as mentioned prior, in what is considered to be its least effective state. Still, the ALM-7D was the foundation for what would eventually become a supremely reliable recon asset for the Federated Suns, and their affiliated partners over the latter half of the 31st century and into the 32nd one as well. Everything about this mech is simply about streamlining it to provide the tonnage needed for the mech to perform its intended combat role, which inevitably helped it become a masterful recon asset. To start with, it possesses an endo-steel internal structure, saving 1 ton. For a mech of its size, even the saving of 1 ton can be a huge boon. After this, due to the era of its construction, it has both a standard gyro as well as a standard cockpit. When it comes to cooling, the Fireball smartly saves on cost by simply having 10 standard heatsinks. This would be a problem for a lot of mechs, even during 3055, and unironically is a problem for many as well. But it just isn't for the Fireball. It doesn't generate enough heat. Even when running with a single engine hit and firing all of its weapons, it won't overheat. So, why spend the money on doubles? It is efficient, especially during an era where double heatsinks had only recently started to become a norm in manufacturing. When it comes to onboard electronic systems, the Fireball is served by a Link-Sure communications package, and a Saurian B targeting and tracking system. The Link-Sure itself provides the Fireball with one of its key traits even. Its first major quirk is related to this, in the form of its improved communications attribute, which does help it thematically in its recon role. In-game, it helps it ignore the first level of ghost targets, and more easily allows it to make a satellite uplink. Outside of this, it has the superb narrow or low profile trait, making it harder to knock out. The key feature of the Fireball, movement and mobility, are the center and core of keeping this lightning-fast Battlemech alive. This aspect also allows it to accomplish every single goal the Mechwarrior or Commander may have for it on the battlefield. In essence, this is what fuels its options and opportunities in any conflict zone. It's also where the single largest volume of weight is placed in terms of the mech's tonnage allocations, and understandably so. In other words, to begin playing this out, this all means that the Fireball is driven forward by a comparatively massive 5-ton DAV 220XL fusion power plant. This massive brick of an engine imbues the Fireball with the potential to reach a maximum speed of 184 km per hour, or 17 movement points in the tabletop game. It literally walks 11, which is the run speed of a Succession Wars era Jenner, which is no slouch. Now, as this is an XL engine, that does mean that if the Fireball loses a side torso, the mech is knocked out immediately. But it is a 20-ton mech in the first place, meaning that once that happens either way, the mech would be in severe trouble regardless. In total, with the ability to run as fast as it does, the Fireball can get out of trouble, anywhere, immediately. It can also use this speed to engage opponents through position, which they can do little to stop, and it acts as the ultimate defensive modifier generator, especially when it can be combined with light or heavy woods. The Fireball is very much its 220 engine, more than anything else. The rest of the mech exists to complement it, even if this appears to be unintentional, given its original anti-battle armor role. So much of the Fireball's true protection is in fact its speed and mobility, but it does have a physical aspect to its defense as well, of course, just to keep the mech alive. The AML-7D has no ECM or anti-missile system, or anything that just isn't its ability to traverse from one space to another, and its armored plating. So the Fireball has 4 tons of standard plate. This is about the same as the venerable Locust that predated it. That means that the Fireball has 64 points of armor. It is frankly not very much, but it is a 20-ton mech. In other words, armor is never going to truly be the mech's strongest suit. If it gets caught by anything larger than itself, or even something around the same weight even, it is in severe danger. In the realm of attack, the 7D is wildly failed, frankly. It is poorly equipped to deal damage to almost any target, of any type. It can barely deal with infantry, and it can't deal with armored assets of almost any size or make, including elementals. It has very simply a Hovertech Streak SRM-2 pod that adds ammunition to the mech as well, I should be clear, and also has less offensive potential than a medium laser. It then goes on to have an LNF Linbald machine gun, which is good at killing infantry, and little else. It has 2 tons of ammunition on board, situated in its right and left torsos, without any case protection. That might be a problem for the mech at some point, you'd be surprised to find out. I'll just say this, it is badly armed, even for a 20-ton mech. The ALM-7D Fireball is an intriguing mech, not because it is good, but because it opens up avenues for far more smartly designed configurations that appear later. It is blazingly fast, like even clan mechs of the same size will be caught flat-footed by its ability to just go, and it's decently protected for what it is. It's not expensive to build outside of its engine, and it's a brilliant recon asset. Just hope you never need it in a shooting match, because you will lose to anything. Even infantry, probably, to be honest. The single best mainstream variation of the Fireball series of mech prior to the Blakist era, the ALM-8D makes the necessary changes to turn the Fireball into a truly deadly machine on the battlefield. It debuted first in 3054, only 1 year after the original failed rollout of the 7D. The SRM-2 Streak is dropped, and 2 medium lasers are installed in its place. A half-ton of armor is then added, shoring up its limbs with slightly more durability. It retains its machine gun in order to defend itself from infantry opposition. What makes this so dangerous? Well, it does nearly 3 times the optimal damage of the original, and has more chances to hit. This mech is a terrifying backstabber, even to enemy light mechs that will struggle to keep pace with it. Make no mistake, the ALM-8D is a true terror in the hands of those who understand how to operate it. Built the same year as the 8D, the 9D tries to flip what the 8D did. It replaces the machine gun for a single medium laser and the same half-ton of armor, keeping the SRM-2 streak. It's not able to handle infantry ambushes at all, and has less offensive power. It's still better than the original 7D, but if you can get an 8D, why bother with this one? The most advanced variation of the Fireball ever put into production, the ALM-10D has increased firepower and accuracy, as well as a mild heat problem due to retaining only its single heat sinks. It has less armor, but uses heavy ferro fibers to offset the loss, bringing it back to 69 points. Beyond this, it has twin ER medium lasers and an ER small laser. These are made more dangerous by the addition of a targeting computer, increasing its lethality and accuracy. The next kicker is, it has a mask on board, allowing the mech to take bursts of speed of over 220 km per hour, which is madness. It's faster, more accurate, and more dangerous, but runs a little hot. All the same, it's likely the deadliest fireball to ever be manufactured in mass. A mech for the new era, and a single, one-off design used by Eduardo Vincento, a man known for Solaris racing, breaking into government research facilities, and for what amounts to acts of brigandry. Wanted by the Knights of the Inner Sphere, Eduardo and his mech proved to be just too fast to catch. The XF, as it's called, replaces the mech's XL engine with a Pitband 320 XXL engine, pushing its base maximum speed to 259 km per hour. The mech then further adds a supercharger and mask, letting it push its speed to a shocking 432 km per hour for short bursts. That is over a third of the speed of sound. It is officially the fastest mech ever constructed as of 3081. On tabletop, this means its maximum speed is 40 movement points per turn. The mech's absurdity and limited armor and weight means there is a constant danger to the machine in many ways. One slip at full speed would be its destruction. For its offensive assets, though, it is armed with 2 ER small lasers. The XF also benefits from having double heat sinks. The XF, by the way, stands for extra fast. It is one of the most expensive light mechs ever built, and it is indeed one of a kind. Unlikely to win many battles, at the very least, it'll never lose, because it will simply just run away and live to fight another day. When it was first introduced, when pushed into its intended role, the Fireball was an unmitigated, underwhelming disaster. However, through sheer necessity, its true strengths were realized. In the years that followed, redesigns and new production runs would enhance the mech's core features. First with the 8D, and then later with the very effective and terrifying 10D. There's little more to say truthfully. The Fireball is a story of a bad idea turned to gold. It is the scrappy character who leaned into what they were good at and became a golden recon and light brawling asset. As long as it keeps in its lane, it is extremely effective. It embodies the words of the legendary philosopher Sonic the Hedgehog. Gotta go fast. Adapt and flourish. A greetings to new citizens of the Federated Suns. Thank you for joining me here today. I think this is a great way to kick off the full coverage of TRO 3055. I had a lot of fun putting this one together, and it's pretty tight in terms of its focus. I'm aiming to do this for most of the machines we cover here. The Fireball is a fantastic little thing. A quick reminder though, I have videos already up on the Hollander, Rakshasa, and of course the Stone Rhino, so if you're interested in this TRO as a whole, those videos are also already up. Next up will be the Combine's Daimyo. I will be including links to the Fireball's miniature from Ironwind Metals below, as well as a link to CGL's book for TRO 3055, and for the most up-to-date record sheets for the Fireball in the top pinned comment of this video. If you enjoyed, don't forget to like. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. A huge thank you to all of the YouTube channel members too, as usual, as this is really only made possible because of viewers like you. So, what did you all think of the Fireball? Let me know in the comment section below, and I will catch you all there.